Everybody, and welcome to the Audit Committee. A reminder that any members or officers in physical attendance with an electronic device should mute it to avoid feedback, and any remote participants, please keep your camera and microphone off unless you wish to speak. This meeting may be recorded, and data collected during the recording of the meeting will be retained in accordance with the Council's data retention policy, and the recording of the meeting may be added to the Council's website. Members accessing the meeting remotely should use their SBC or KCC laptop to participate virtually, and if you join using the link on the website or on a mobile and tablet device, it is not always possible to identify you and you may not be recorded as in remote attendance. Can I please remind members to speak loudly and clearly into their microphones and to switch their microphone off after speaking, otherwise remote participants may be unable to hear the next speaker. Welcome members and officers, and there are no members of the public joining us here. I can't see online. I think there are audit colleagues joining us there. So welcome again. The following staff are in attendance with us. We've got our Director of Resources, Lisa Fillery, Head of Audit Partnership, Cathy Woodward, Head of Finance and Procurement, Claire Stanbury. From Grant Thornton, we have Uha and Addy. And from Democratic Services, we have Tim at his first audit committee. So welcome to the best committee on Swale Council. I'm sure all of us in this room agree. There are no other officers in attendance as far as I can see. So we shall move on. Are members and officers all aware of the evacuation procedure? There is no planned evacuation, so if the alarm sounds, please leave via the exits indicated and where directed. Is there anybody with mobility issues in attendance? I think we are all right. Very good. Are there any apologies for absence? Councillor Noe.
Councillor Noe is in absence.
Great. Thank you very much for that. We are missing a couple of others as well. Sorry, Councillor Harrison.
Yes, you were just going to say, and could I ask that you or the officer write round, because I think it's quite appalling. This is an incredibly important committee. I know, I helped set it up all those years ago, and it is interesting. And God forbid there is anything that goes wrong. Well, what was the Audit Committee doing? Well, half of them never bothered turning up. It is not good enough.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. I second the sentiment. I might moderate my tone in the email, but the sentiment will be similar. And a secondary note, as we're discussing it, is a reminder that I was going to give to our new councillors joining us on Audit Committee who have not yet managed to enjoy that delight, is that we do have a training programme, and that is considered best practice and is part of our SIPFA credentials that our councillors attend those training programmes. Obviously, I'm very much preaching to the choir because we were all just at our training session before this. So, but well done to us for continuing to make that credential, and more work for the rest of us in future. So, moving on, do members take the minutes of the meeting held on the 15th of October, minute numbers 393 to 398, as a correct record? Thank you very much. I shall sign those shortly. Are there any declarations of interest? I see nothing, so we will move on to item 5, the Internal Audit Assurance and Progress Report for 2025-26. I will invite the officer to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for those of you who attended the training earlier today, and hopefully that training will help in your understanding of this report as we discuss its contents. So the main areas that I want to talk about in this report, so it's the progress report for 25-26 up to the end of November. So the main things I want to talk about are delivery against the audit plan and the follow-up work that we've done to date. So on page 7 of your agenda pack is the progress up to November in delivery of the audit plan. And as you can see, there is a significant amount of work that is currently underway. When the plan was constructed, it was agreed that essential and high priority audits would be the main focus, and medium priority audits would be delivered within the remaining resources to ensure a sufficient breadth of coverage for me to deliver the annual audit opinion. So the work that's been allocated already will provide a sufficient amount of work to deliver that opinion. We're working with some contractors, and it did take slightly longer than anticipated to get that work underway. And that has had a knock-on effect of the volume of work that we have delivered to date. However, this work is now progressing at quite some pace, and you'll be able to see from the report the amount of work that is currently in traction. So since the report was issued, we have also received a draft audit report for the waste collection contract. So that hasn't been issued in draft yet, but I can confirm it is a positive report. But I will be able to provide you with those details at the next meeting that we have in July, when I report on progress again in July. So we're on target to deliver more audits this year than in previous years, but it isn't necessarily a numbers game. It's about ensuring that we do have the right breadth of audit work delivered to provide that opinion. So the second area that I want to cover off is the following up of management actions, which you can see on page 10. So the tables here identify that there are 49 actions still in progress or not yet due. There are no overdue actions, but you will notice that there is still one action in progress from the year 2022-23. I will just give you an update on that action. It was a licensing enforcement action that was to do with online forms, and I can confirm that those online forms are going live in April this year. So that work is underway, progressing. It's taken a bit of time with the team, working with IT and other people to make sure that that can happen, and so it can happen accurately and correctly. So that one will be signed off. Everything's completed from the following year, 23-24, and we're over halfway through signing off all of the actions from last year. So page 11 of the agenda pack provides executive summaries of completed audit work. And I will just draw your attention to the weak assurance rating commercial property income audit. So this was one that I notified you of in July, when I provided the annual audit opinion, that this one was likely to be weak. And it's obviously come for this committee this time with the details of that. So just to provide a bit of assurance that we are monitoring this very closely and working with the service on the following up of those actions that are in that service. A number of them are complete already, but we are continuing to work with the service to ensure that the actions get followed up so that that can move out of week. But the service have had some significant resourcing challenges, sickness, various other things, and they are, it's really nice to see, because they are really trying in that service. You know, it's not weak because they don't care. They really do care about that service, and it was an important message that I did want to make sure that you and the management team were aware of, that we had a massive amount of support from the team in doing the audit, and they appreciate some of the weaknesses that we've identified, but they are moving in the right direction with those. So I don't have any other anything else that I wish to go through, but I'm happy to take any questions from members.
Thank you. I'll open the floor. Any questions? Councillor Worcester.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of questions based on a couple of different areas of the report, if that's okay. I thought it was a very good report. My initial question is around something potentially for the future. I wasn't here when the council took in the extra money for the levelling up, or provided that function for the levelling up. I know we've got something else coming up in terms of the place money that's going down to potentially Laysdown. I just wondered where that would sit in our procedures and how we kind of monitor that going through the system. I know it's obviously not coming until summer 2026 at the earliest, but I thought it was prudent to ask here to watch out for it.
Yeah, so I'll answer that one because it's budget monitoring rather than audit.
Oh, apologies.
Yeah, so it will form as the LUF money does, forms part of the budget monitoring for revenue and capital, depending on where the split is going to, cost is going to sit. But also some of that, we are only going to be the accountable body. So we're not necessarily responsible for actually spending the money. We are the custodians of passing it to the board that is supposed to be set up to manage the project. So the board itself will have its own terms and conditions and meetings that will be discussing the progress and the how the money is going to be spent, and the monitoring will come through our budget monitoring, but it's not necessarily it's not our decision making to spend it, so it's not necessarily going to form part of that. And then the financial stuff will be picked up as part of the external audit at year end when our income and expenditure is looked at.
Lovely. And
I'm sure I will also have to fill in government returns.
I'm perfectly sure you will. It's more of a point of interest. I'm interested to follow it through because it's such a unique circumstance. So thank you very much for the extra information. I also looked at the summary report for licensing, and I'm more than happy to accept this might be far too operational. I just wanted to know if the audit looked at all of the bits of licensing, because sometimes as a member I find it very difficult to track licensing through the council because there's so many different functions of it. When you look at it and you think, oh, there's licensing for commercial premises, there's licenses that we do for holiday parks and things like that. Did that encompass all of that work, or was that just very specific for a particular functioning of licensing?
So this audit specifically looked at duties that form part of the Licensing Act 2003, which is the personal and premises licenses, so primarily alcohol licensing. So that was the main focus of it. And yes, licensing is one of those areas that is split into multiple different areas. When we audit it, we will audit taxi license separately, we'll audit enforcement separately, and we will also audit the other areas of licensing as its own separate audit as well. So they weren't looked at in this audit.
Are they potentially coming back at a later date, the other areas?
Yes, they will be looked at a later date. Given the risk rating of this audit, they'll probably be looked at within 2 years.
Lovely. I'm aware that some of those questions could have been raised in the training beforehand. Unfortunately, I couldn't because I was driving at the time. Apologies.
That's fine.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the report? Now, my very quick one is just, as you highlighted, the kind of the shape of the calendar based on the scale of the reports we commissioned. Has that kind of had any impact on the team in terms of we've kind of backloaded lots of work now, and so is there a kind of impact on the team, and how are we looking at avoiding that if we need to for the next year?
So yes, there is an impact of the fact that lots of audits started later in the year, and the biggest impact is on any of my reviewers and managers within the team, because what that means is all of the review work kind of happens at the back end of the year, which can be quite intensive. We know that at the end of January, we're expecting from our contractors to receive 9 or 10 reports. So that's a lot of review work that we need to do. The same thing will happen in February and March and April to get to our annual audit opinion. So in terms of mitigating that for happening in the future, we've done 2 specific things. When we went out to contract, we went out for a 2-year period to ensure that we could have a rolling plan, so that next year work will actually start April, May for next year's annual audit opinion, rather than October, November, which is what happened this year. So we've brought that forwards by 6 months, which will mean that we can review work, or work will be completed earlier in the year. And also to mitigate that, we have done a recruitment campaign. So we're in the process of finalising that, but hopefully with some success, and we should have 2 new recruits starting with us later in the year to support that work, who will be senior auditors who will be able to help with that review work.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Sounds very positive. Any other questions or comments? If not, can I have a proposer and seconder to note the report, please? I've got Councillor Harrison and Councillor Worcester. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Cathy and your team. So moving on to item 6, Treasury Management, the half-year report. I will hand over to, I'm assuming, Claire for this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is the Q2 report, providing you with an update on the performance of the Treasury Management function for the first 6 months of the year. So during the second quarter, the Bank of England base rate reduced yet again, this down to 4%, although it was a very close decision this time around, with concerns still lingering about inflation. Rates are still expected to fall further, although how far they will fall is now less certain than it was previously. All of the council's current borrowing is on short-term loans of less than 12 months, but with rates falling, that should mean that any refinancing of loans shouldn't have a negative impact upon the council. At the end of the second quarter, the council held £12 million of borrowing, and at that same point, investments held totalled 21.3 million, and the average balance held over the first 6 months of the year was 16 million on any one day. The investments brought in investment income of £464,000 over the first 6 months, and that's above the amount that's expected on the budget position. As you're aware, we hold an external property fund, which we've held for some time, and that continues to generate income of around about £30,000 per quarter, which has remained consistent. Investment and borrowing balances are broken down in Appendix 1 of the report, and Appendix 2 shows the performance of the Treasury function against the indicators that are set in the strategy. There have been no breaches of existing indicators and nothing that's giving cause for concern at this point in time. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Claire. Any questions or comments from the room? Councillor Booth.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got no questions, but I think it's prudent to congratulate Claire and the finance team in particular, given that these are extraordinary times, not only for Swalborough Council, but for the other 12, 13 districts across the county who are finding it extremely difficult. I'd suggest we're in a very positive position financially, and it does set us heads above a lot of our neighbouring districts and boroughs. So congratulations.
Absolutely second that. I'm sure we will be very grateful for the work and the success of this work when we're having our difficult budget discussions in a few weeks' time. Any more questions or comments from Claire? In which case, can I have a proposer and seconder to note the performance information in the report and the Prudential and Treasury Management indicators in the report? Councillor Booth proposing, Councillor Clark second. All those in favour? Unanimous again. Thank you very much. So, moving on then, item 7, the Treasury Management Strategy 26-27. I shall hand back over for their introduction.
Thank you very much. So this is the report that I bring here annually to the committee to recommend the Treasury Management Strategy for next year. This is recommending to Policy and Resources Committee. The policy is reviewed and agreed each year, and the context this time around is a period of slower economic growth, ongoing uncertainty around the global economy, and, as I previously mentioned, slowly falling interest rates. The strategy sets out how we will manage our cash balances over the year, borrowing when required and investing cash balances in a secure way when we have any surplus of cash. Affordability of borrowing will be a key consideration, and security of investments will be of utmost importance. We're proposing to increase the cash limit in money market funds from £3 million to £4 million to aid in the smooth management of cash surpluses. Money market funds are a safe and efficient way to manage surplus cash on a short-term basis, and cash is spread across the funds to manage risk. There are no other changes proposed from the current strategy. The strategy sets out the indicators that we will abide by over the year, and as set out in Appendix 1. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? Councillor Harrison.
I propose something Dolly questioned earlier. I'm not sure I should say, because it's all... You don't know who's watching this on that TikTok channel, do you? So when the council gets grant money, well, first question is, when we get grants or other things, do we ever get the money up front, or is it always in arrears? That was the first question, because the second question would be, if we were to get money up front, obviously we manage as we do, would that be fair game for... Am I making myself very unclear? Thank you.
generally speaking, we do get the money up front. We have had the programme of when we were due to get money, for example, on the Luff project, has changed throughout the life cycle of the project, but we have, I think, on the whole, had it ahead of the spend. So that's not a problem. And yeah, when we've got the money, it is included in those balances that we invest, so that we're making the best use of that whilst we have it.
Thank you. I think that is, I'm sure that's absolutely standard practice across local government. We were assured when we asked about the Faversham Bridge Fund held by our colleagues at KCC that interest was not available to the Faversham Bridge Fund, should we have wished to have it. So that's, thank you very much for that. Any further questions or comments? No, and again, sounds like a very sensible prudential step given the strong performance we've seen so far this year. So business as usual is very positive in this context. So can I have a proposer and seconder to recommend this? The recommendation says to full council via P&R, that's fine. I've got Councillor Harrison and Councillor Booth proposing and seconding. Are we all in favour? It's unanimously agreed again. Thank you very much, councillors. So, on to our final item of the evening, item 8, the External Audit Progress Report. I assume I'm handing over online. I can see Addy and Uha, so I shall hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's a very short report from us, and I'll hand over to Uha to just take you through very briefly through the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Addy. Good evening, everyone. So I would like to update the committee members on our audit approach and timeline for the financial year 25-26. So we are planning to start our risk assessment and planning work in Feb, followed by early interim testing in March. This is the first time we will be undertaking interim field work. And we are confident that this approach will be successful in significantly reducing the workload during the final fieldwork phase. And we also had discussions with Lisa and Claire regarding the delivery of 25-26 audit. And following these discussions, we are actually planning to commence the main field work in the mid-June rather than waiting until July, and to continue until September 2026. Also, from these discussions, we are also aware that there is a new financial system that is being implemented in mid-July. And we recognize that this is a particularly critical period as the audit will be ongoing and the finance team has to simultaneously manage the transition to the new system. So we will be working closely with the finance team to coordinate our activities and minimize the disruption during this time. And I would also like to draw the committee's attention to the audit fees, which is detailed within the page 59 of the pack, which is 189K for 25-26. And GT also has arranged 2 webinars to support both the audit committee members and the finance team. The first webinar aimed at audit committee members will take place on 10th Feb. And the second webinar designed for the finance team will be held on 5th and 11th of Feb. And coming to the audit deliverables, we are planning to present the audit plan at the next audit committee meeting in the month of April. And the audit findings report and the auditor's annual report and auditor's report are scheduled for the presentation in the month of September or October accordingly. And finally, the remaining pages of the progress report are mainly about the sector updates, where we have briefed the general things which are applicable to all the local governments and which may be of interest to the members. And here I would like to pause for any questions from the committee members.
Thank you. Any questions from the room? Councillor Worcester?
Not questions as such, but a couple of comments. I particularly like the COVID-19 inquiry response, and I'm very much looking forward to hearing more information. I've been following it. It's a personal interest of mine, the COVID inquiry. I agree. Modulate is the one that interests me the most, which is the impact on children and young people. So I'm very pleased to see that spoken about. The audit. I wasn't particularly expecting to see that in this document, so I thought it was an excellent addition. And I know that we've come back with some presentation interest in this report in various years, and I think I found this particularly easy to read. I found all the information coherent and really useful, and I know that I'm probably talking into a very empty room, but I do feel that all councillors would benefit from seeing reports like these, and I will be going back to my group and especially asking for members to have a look, have a read, and make sure that all councillors have that overview, at least, of where the council sits in regard to audits and finances especially. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Worcester. And just from my end, kind of a commendation and a thank you for that planning you're putting in for next year, particularly around the change to the finance system. I know our officers will appreciate that understanding when we get there. So thank you for that. I'm handing back to Uha for any more. Thank you.
That's it from us, actually. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Apologies, you said pause, and I misinterpreted. My fault. So no, if we're all happy. Sorry, Councillor Harrison, question.
Trying to think when it was. I was so enthralled I didn't make any notes. The Renters' Right Act, we have already had a briefing from our housing officers on that. It was an initial briefing because, as with a lot of these acts, this bit comes in here and then a few months later that bit comes in and then that bit comes in. So it was the start of an ongoing series of training for the Renters' Rights Act. And because it says, the Audit Committee should be asking. The Audit Committee don't need to be asking because we're all fully aware of it. And to be fair, we've been asking the officers when it was a bill that we want training. And we eventually got it. Well, I say eventually because it then became an act. But that's not something that we've ever tarried over. I wish there'd have been a few more people on the call, but you can't force them.
Quite so. Thank you very much, Councillor Harrison. Any other questions or comments? No, in which case I will say thank you very much to our colleagues from Grant Thornton for your work on this, and we look forward to seeing you and more of our colleagues from the room on the 10th of February, shortly. But before we get there, can I have a proposer and seconder to note the external report? Councillor Worcester and Councillor Clark. All those in favour? Unanimous again. Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you very much, everybody in attendance, for joining us. I have failed by nearly 10 minutes to beat Councillor Clark's record, but we have done relatively well. So thank you very much, and we'll see you at the next thing. Good night.